For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and welcome to the Brian Cole Story, episode 9. My goodness. We've done 8 of these already, Brian.
We've done 8 of them already.
Flying by. At this rate, what are we up to now? Like age 30? Oh, I didn't have last week's notes. Like early 30s?
I think we're late 30s now.
Late 30s, all right.
Maybe early 40s.
Okay, so we left off, and by the way, if anyone has missed the previous 8 episodes, you can go to our YouTube channel to find those under a playlist called The Brian Cole Story at youtube.com/DrydenWire. They're on our website too at DrydenWire.com and on our Facebook page, but it's easier probably because it's a playlist right there. You're going to go one after the next. But where did we leave off last week? If I recall, it was just getting out of your second 10-year prison sentence, or the time that you were in prison. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's pick it up right there. Where are you off to? You get out of prison, now what?
Yep, get out of prison. Like I said, I pumped iron for 6.5 years prior to my release and got to be this 185-pound bulk dude and get released from prison. And during that time, I said that girl that I was with, we'll call her N, was writing, not the one that was in the part of the triangle, but the other one I was staying with on and off. So I moved back. I moved in with her. She stayed with me that whole 10 years, regardless of everything that had happened. And I ended up getting a drywall job. Nice. And the crew I was with, it was just 3 young guys. Our supervisor was like 24. He was the oldest one, and the other 2 guys with me were like 19 and 20.
That's a young man's game. I mean, construction in general.
Oh man, I'm in my, well, let's see. I'm probably, that was 19 or 2006. So I was 41, but I was in the best shape of my life, man. I thought I was pumping iron all those years, almost 14-inch arms and all that. But drywalling showed me how not in shape I was. So working with these guys. Well, anyway, these guys, I do want to say one thing quick. As soon as I came out, we had cell phones. They have cell phones when I went in. I remember being in the work van on the way to the job site, and all these guys had phones in their pocket, and it was ringing in their pockets and stuff. And I'm like, what the heck is that? What's going on here? And then when I finally got my phone, put it in my pocket, and I remember the first couple times it rang in my pocket, I just about jumped out of my pants, man. That's just one of those things when you spend so much time in prison and you come out to a radically different society with so many different things. And
that last 10 years that you were in, which was years, what?
96 to 2006.
There was a lot of technical advances in that time.
Big time. And I remember just before getting locked up, that's when those big suitcase phones came out that you could plug into your car, and I had one of those, and I thought I was the man, And now I come out and there's these little pocket phones. Anyway, so I'm working with these guys, and all the way to the job, all the way back from the job, during the breaks, during lunch, these guys are all smoking dope, and I obviously couldn't because I was on probation, and they do the P tests and stuff. So
have you ever had a job where people weren't, aside from the animal shelter, that weren't smoking dope?
Well, and there were 2. I got her smoking weed, and Eric smoking weed, but no, not many. It's just kind of everywhere, especially construction. Your construction, you got drinking and you got drugs, so it's just part of the deal. So anyway, I get back out. I'm working with these guys. They're smoking dope. I can't because I know the P tests are coming, and do the same thing I did before, just kind of tripping on acid and stuff where they can't catch me with it. But then my first couple times I went in to see my PO, I noticed that they no longer went into the bathroom and watched you pee. They gave you the cup and let you go into the bathroom. Oh, well, then it was game on. So started going out and buying clean pee from people, straight up, $10 a pop, and was keeping it in my fridge in glue bottles, small glue bottles. And
why glue bottles? Or any particular reason? Is that
because the small Elmer's glue bottles were very easy to put down your pants and tape it to yourself. So that's how I kept it. And I, just before I go to the PO, I'd take it out and microwave it for a little bit till it warmed up to the right temperature, and then put it down my pants and tape it on myself, and go in and pull that thing out and pee, and it was all good. So As soon as I did that, I started getting right back into the crack cocaine and doing cocaine and moved in with, or got with Sean. He was one of the guys I was telling you that I was locked up with down in Oklahoma. Sean would actually, if I was married, this is the drama of drug life or criminal lifestyle. If I was married to the person who had my daughter, he would be my brother-in-law. Anyway, great guy, love him to death, did a lot of time together, and got with him when I got out and, started right back in with crack cocaine and cocaine. Now, at this time, I knew that he was doing meth. And that's something that I would not do, because during that time from 96 to 2006, was during the late 90s, early 2000s is when the meth started becoming a big problem. Now, I had a lot of my guys that were coming into the joint, whether it was friends or just even some of my roommates who've been involved in meth. And, sitting and listening to the stories of just that lifestyle and what it did to their bodies and what it did to their teeth and all that, I'm like, I am never going to touch that drug ever in my life, man. Wow. I'll stick to my safe crack, right? I mean, that's the mindset of a stupid drug person. So I knew he did meth, and I didn't want nothing to do with it. But I was into the crack and doing oxys and everything else with them. So anyway, I keep working out for a little while, and eventually I lose interest. The drugs take over, and between that and the job, I just didn't have time for it. But then one day, I wasn't out too long, and I found out that there's this band called Skinny Puppy. And I had been listening to Skinny Puppy all my life, and I've never been able to see them live because I've always been incarcerated. So I'm like, since the 80s, I've been listening to them. I found out they were having a concert. Well, you can't go to a concert without drugs. So I went to my crack dealer and to get a bunch of crack for the concert, and found out he got arrested and didn't have any. So I went to Sean and say, "Hey, Sean, like a day after, I'm kind of tweaking a little bit. I'm a day off the crack.
Can I just guess? I think everybody that's watching this can guess right now that did he only have one drug available?
Well, here's what's up. I said, here's what happened. My drug dealer got busted. Can you find somebody, or do you know somebody that sells crack or cocaine? And he's like, no, but I got this, right?
I knew it.
And I'm like, nope, I ain't doing that, Sean.
That's right.
I told you, I'm not. And I left. Well, a couple days later, so now you're talking 3 days, and I'm really tweaking now because 3 days without my crack.
Can I stop you there real quick? You've brought that up before, and I just literally don't know. I know what tweaking represents, but what does that look like? What is it when you are 2-3 days and you're tweaking? What does that mean?
Well, I think there's two kinds of tweaking. There's a tweaking without the drugs, and there's a tweaking on the drugs.
Okay.
And the tweaking without the drugs, man, you're just going basically as withdrawals. I mean,
what symptoms are you experiencing?
I'm feeling weighed down. My mind is cloudy. I can't think right. I'm sweating, just all this garbage. So I go back and I'm like, hey, did you find anybody yet? And no, man, but I got this. And it's cheaper. It's, it lasts longer. It works better and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, give me that. And as soon as I did that, I knew I was goner.
How'd you know that?
Well, you hear people call it the one-hit wonder. You take one hit of meth and you wonder what happened the rest of your life. It gave me such a feeling that I've never experienced before, and I knew I was gone.
You're like, where's this been my whole life?
Exactly what I said.
And why are these other idiots saying this was like bad and stuff?
Right.
No, this is actually fantastic.
Yeah, but then again, you're chasing, just like any other drug. You're never going to get that high ever again, and you're always chasing that original first high. So that was it. I was a meth addict from that point on. Notice I'm sitting here doing twitching and stuff, just thinking about it.
Wow.
That's what it does to you. But anyway, so yeah, I right away got in that, and I was addicted. Started selling a lot of marijuana to pay for my meth habit. Started hanging around with that meth clique, and right away I saw what these guys were all telling me. I mean, I was part of the 60s and 70s, man. You
Mhm.
know, peace, love, rise above, share your last joint with somebody, and this meth clique, man. These dudes will stab you. Your best friend will stab you if you try to take their last hit or something or whatever. And it's just a drama and all this stuff involved in this whole meth clique, man. It's just crazy. Obviously it wasn't. It didn't really occur to me at the time how crazy it was, but after time, man, it's like, wow, this is nuts. And anyway, so I'm living with Nancy, and even though I was doing cocaine with them too, I know she would have freaked out because she didn't want me doing the crack, and I never did crack around her. So now I'm having to maintain a front. And if you don't know how hard that is to be smoking meth around somebody, or shooting meth, or any other way that you're snorting meth, and try to maintain normalcy. It's really hard, because one of the easiest ways you can tell somebody is on meth, there's a lot of ways, but the easiest way is they don't stop talking. Their eyes are dilated and they're just constantly moving and doing things. My thing was chewing the inside of my gum. People literally rip out their cheeks and stuff from chewing, and that was my thing. So I had to be aware of all this when I was in the house, and then trying to sleep. You don't sleep on meth. So I'd go to bed and I'd just wait until she was in her deep sleep, and I would get up and leave and then come back in the morning before she woke up. And I maintained that for a while. Eventually it got to the point where we were just not working out. I told her I would never leave her. I'm a man of my word, and I wouldn't. But I think, no, I know I kind of made things really hard. So she got to the point of kicking me out on purpose.
Yeah,
and
because
she
she's
finally
been with
did.
you.
Yeah, through the
She's
prison
been
thing.
loyal to you.
Yeah.
For a very long time.
Very
and through a
long time.
lot of stuff.
Yes, sir.
And now you're kicking her to the curb. And is
Yeah.
it because I can't smoke meth around her, and that's
Yeah,
basically it?
Couldn't be who I was in that house. And you ain't going to tell me I'm an independent dude. You ain't going to tell me how to live my life. So
No.
she kicked me out.
Good for her.
And ended up moving in with my brother again,
Hey.
which never worked out in the past.
No.
And I had this. She had a little car. It was a little. I don't remember. Geo Metro. A little Geo Metro.
Oh, I remember that.
It was a car. I was 40 some miles a gallon. And
Awesome.
I was using that. And one day I went out to get the car. The car was gone. Well, her and one of her daughters had come down, took the car from me, and I'm like, are you serious, man? So I'm without a car and stuff, living with my brother. I quit my job, and me and my brother started dealing together. He was actually really good at it for the start of it there, and I also started up my own body piercing business to make some extra cash. Plus, it was a great way to see naked women.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Is it, by the way, you started your own.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a cash-based business.
Yep.
Right? You're probably not taking
Cash or
credit
drugs or
cards.
sex, whatever.
Right. So people weren't worried? Sounds like you, unless you glossed over that part or just skipped that part, no training for that.
Nope, no training, just watching videos and
Like,
stuff.
I don't know.
Watching
I
other
know how to
people
poke
do
a
it.
hole in someone.
Plus, I was pierced all over anyway, and it wasn't too hard. I didn't do nothing fancy.
Sure.
Just basic piercings.
Okay.
So I got into that. So started body piercing. At some point, Tom and Lori, the people who managed the Chippewa County Humane Association that I lived with when I was there, they had a house in town in Chippewa, and they wanted to know if I would be interested in renting it. And it was a 2-story house with a garage and everything. I'm like, yeah.
These people have been great to you.
They have.
Why?
They have. I don't.
What did they
know.
see in you?
I don't know. I was really good with the animals, and I was, because they didn't go against any of my living standards and lifestyles. I loved on them, man, and respected them, and they respected me.
And they're always trying to help you.
Yeah. So me and my brother moved in, and Dawn, the lady who's got my kid, and her kids, including my kid, and another dude that we knew, all moved into this house. And eventually it just ended up becoming one big drug house because all of us were selling out of there. So it was just constant traffic all day. And this is the first time now since I first met my daughter when she was about 14 or so, in the prison just shortly before I got released. So now my daughter's living with me. And this is where the only really relationship I had with my daughter, we weren't there very long. I think it was 6 months or something. And then that 6 months, my daughter was getting a prescription of Adderall. And whenever she would get her Adderall, I'd be like, okay, give me that. And I'll go over here to the store and buy you a couple cartons of cigarettes and we'll call it good. And then I pierced her a couple places. And other than that, there was really no interaction between me and my daughter on a good level. She was just there, didn't really pay any attention to her, and it was just a really bad place for her to be in.
Was she going to school?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was my relationship with my daughter during that period.
It sounds like it really wasn't a relationship.
No,
you were
not at
just
all.
using her for Adderall.
Yep, for the drugs.
And okay.
Yeah. Then at one point, my brother, and again, this is just how we've always been. We're selling big time drugs now, and I mean pounds of it. And we owed the dealer like $4,000. We had to pay him to get our next load, and all of a sudden, it comes time to pay him. My brother's gone. Now my brother has a gambling addiction. My dad turned him on to that, and he's been addicted ever since. Still is to this day. And he wasn't around when it came time that we were supposed to go pay the dealer. And I'm like, dude, better not be doing what I think he's doing. And he did. He went up to Turtle Lake and lost all that money and never came back home because he lost all the money.
Right.
So, looking for him for a couple days, didn't show up, finally found him. And it was eventually, listen, man, you either give me your car so we can sell it and get that money back, or something really bad's going to happen. So we ended up taking his car, me and this other guy, Danny, who was the one that was turned us on to this big drug dealer. So we took his car, he signed it over to us, we sold it. And just, again, saying this to show you just the future of the lifestyle of burning each other and even your family and all that. So anyway, after a while there, my brother and his girlfriend were not paying the rent. The only part that was being paid was our part. So we ended up really losing the house, and I ended up, all right, I'm moving out, man. So we moved out. Eventually, well, while we were there, that was probably one of the times where I really started becoming depressed. Even though, I mean, in this place, I had the whole upstairs to myself, huge bedroom up there and all that. And it was nothing but a pornographic temple up there. I had about 13 people coming into the temple at the time, on and off, and just into porn and just sex stuff like you wouldn't believe, and just nasty stuff. The cutting and self-mutilation just got so bad. I remember being up there a couple times and putting newspaper down on the floor and just cutting myself so bad and just rubbing the blood all over me. I mean, that was my way of dealing with depression and life just coming over me. It was just bad, man. The meth habit was just getting bad, and you're talking a few months now, probably 6-8 months, 185-pound rock coming out of prison, and already within 6 to 8 months, I'm a 135-pound skeleton, man. And I'm just ribs sticking out, and teeth already starting to rot.
Is it because it takes away your hunger?
Takes away your hunger.
Eating? I mean, how do you drop 50 pounds just on meth?
You don't eat. I mean, you can't eat. I was one who couldn't eat anyway, and even drinking something, it was hard for me even to drink anything. Definitely not water. I've never drank water anyway. But yeah, you just don't eat, you don't drink, and you're always on the go. So you're, plus what the drug does to your blood pressure and all that, your body is just intense. So yeah, it was bad. And so yeah, me and my brother were also driving for a couple of car places, driving cars to auctions, and people who buy the cars, we take them to their house or whatever. I ended up buying a van from these guys, a secondhand van. And after we moved out of the house, I just moved into that van. It was during that time, just before I moved out of the house, where I met my current wife, Marcia. Now, Dawn, I had went to her one day, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm looking for a woman. I don't want no relationship. I just want to have sex. You know anybody? And she's like, I got the person for you. And that's how me and Marcia got hooked up. I went to her place. We hooked up. Neither one of us wanted a relationship, supposedly, and we connected immediately. Now, she was just 26 years old at the time. She was 20 years younger than me. A hottie. She was just coming off pancreatic cancer surgery. She is one of those miracles. She's a pancreatic cancer survivor. So to me, all this really was another notch on my belt. I got a girl that's 20 years younger than me. She's my sexual fantasy in every way. And
Sure.
by going through her dresser drawers, and she's got Oxycontins and oxycodones and everything. Oh, extra bonus, just yeah, I fell in love with her. So I ended up moving in with her. She knew I was living out of my van. She had to come stay with me, so I did. And it wasn't very long. And she was sleeping all the time. She was sick all the time from the surgery and medication, and she had other medical problems too. So I was always, mostly I lived there, but I was gone most of the time because there was times where I'd come home and she'd be sleeping, passed out or whatever. So I'd leave again. I wouldn't come back for, another day or whatever. So it was always in and out. But the thing that attracted me about her, other than her age and her looks, was the fact that she never got on me about not being there, about not spending time with her, about none of that. So we're talking one day and I'm like, man, if you never change, I'd marry you. And she goes, what do you mean change? I says, man, you don't get on me about my lifestyle. You don't get on me about leaving and not coming back. Why would I do that? I said, will you marry me? That ain't how it was. But
Right.
She basically, she said, well, why don't we? So I went out and I got my brother to tattoo, Marshall, will you marry me, on my knee. I went to the one of the gas stations that had a gumball machine thing with rings and stuff in it. And I bought a gumball machine ring and went to the house and pulled my pant leg up and put the ring by that. And she said yes. And so not even 2 weeks, I knew her. We got married. Now, this is crazy. So
looking back, wait, did I really do all of this?
Yeah, but the weirdest part of that is even though all she was doing at the time was smoking weed, she didn't do any of the other stuff. She knew I was, and but the day that we got married in the courthouse, she told me, she begged me, will you go that one day without using drugs when you marry me? And I'm like, what do you wait? Don't start now. Yeah. This is why I'm marrying you.
Right.
But I did, man. And so that's always my excuse, It's like, well, I love you. And I'm like, no, you don't. She goes, well, then why'd you marry me? I said, because you made me be straight and I wasn't in the right frame of mind, man. So we're married. And it gets to the point where, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks or so after we got married, she kind of got on me one day. And by this time, although she was only smoking weed, I got her to snort her oxys with me instead of just taking them. I'd have her snort them with me.
Well, why do that, by the way? Why?
Because it's a better high. It's a better high than just taking them. So anyway, one day she kind of gets on me a little bit about not being home or being gone so much. And I'm like, wait a minute now.
Boy,
this is why I married you. And then there's the whole point in your mind, at least in my mind, well, wait a minute. I didn't say this. What's going on in my mind? You're sitting here putting oxys up your nose with me, and you're telling me I got a meth problem, because she's like, you're gone all the time. Maybe I don't want you doing that meth. And I'm like, what? So this is where the first time I burned a big time a family member was when I stole the gun from my mom to shoot a man.
Yeah.
This time, because she didn't go along with my agenda, I started cutting meth into the oxys when I was cutting it up, and she became a meth addict. She had no idea.
You put that in hers?
Yep, in her oxys that she was snorting. I cut it in with it, and she became a meth addict. And she didn't know. She didn't know I did that all the way.
How do you not know?
Through marriage counseling.
I mean, you were just telling me that when you have, maybe it's because it was a smaller amount.
She knew after she did it. I mean, definitely knew after she did it. But once you did it again, you're done. So she was done, just like everybody else the first time you do it.
And you did that because why?
She wasn't going along with my agenda. She got on me about smoking meth.
And you figured if I can get her addicted to this, now we're back to everything's cool.
Now we're back to everything is cool, yep. So she became a meth addict. In the meantime, all kinds of stuff going on. Meet this guy, the Danny that was doing the drug thing. He was delivered small animals, like guinea pigs, gerbils, stuff like that, to all these different pet smart stores and stuff in Milwaukee and St. Cloud, St. Paul, all these places. And this 24-foot gooseneck trailer. And I'm like, hey, I want to do that. I love animals and I love driving. So I started doing that with him. We had a shop up in Altoona right next to the police department. And So he had me go down and get all the loads came from this place in Texas, all the animals. So he had me go down one day and get them. So I went down to Texas, I had my little bag with the pills and stuff in it. And I didn't take any meth with me. I took Adderalls and some oxys with me. And when I got down there, long story short, they went in because it was their truck, so that I was staying in. So they went into the truck while I was in working with the animals, learning how to sex them and all that, and went through my bag and found the drugs and called the cops. So they had me come out at one point, and cops were out there, and they found the oxys and stuff in there. And all I ended up getting was a fine, and I had to come back for a court appearance, which I never did. And obviously got fired, came back. So whatever, that's done.
Wait, hold on. Why did they go through your bag? They must have had was it a tip or something, or did they just randomly go through?
They just randomly went through my bag. I'm like, that's my stuff.
No
well, you're
kidding.
in our truck. It's our truck.
Yeah, but
so I don't know if they've
right,
had
whatever.
this problem before or whatever, but they had the legitimate right to do it. I mean, I guess I don't know why they did
I
it.
feel like no, but okay, let's just whatever. Let's move on from that.
Yeah. So anyway, now this is where I met Eric the second time. Now
I remember Eric from before.
Right, turned him on to marijuana at 16. Now he's 27 years old.
Wait a second, hold on. Just for people who don't know or don't remember, who is Eric?
Eric is one of the sons of Tom and Lori, who were the managers of the Tripp County Humane Association.
Yeah. And you had at the time if I recall, you kind of got him onto marijuana.
Marijuana, yep, and he became a pothead.
Got it.
So this time I meet him, and we're 10 years later, and we're bumping fists. Hey man, remember you turned me on to dope? I'm still smoking, and yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's the lifestyle. I'm just stupid. So anyway, this time I turn him on to meth, and Eric becomes a fiend too, a worse fiend than me. And so I just want to fast forward all this. Let's just get to the end of it. Like I say, this is probably the worst time of my life as far as the depression. Didn't feel like I belonged. Didn't feel like I could make it out on the streets other than doing drugs. I just did not have a life. I did not want to live. And so this got expediently more worse after this incident. So anyway, me and Eric are hanging out big time. If you don't know the cycle of meth, whether you snort it or smoke it or bump it, however you do it, you're awake anywhere from 2 to 10 days and nights in a row. You sleep for a day or two. You're awake anywhere from 2 to 10 days and nights in a row. You sleep a day or two, over and over and over. Our average was about 6 days and nights. So Eric's parents and rest of the family ended up moving to Minneapolis, and he stayed behind. Why did he stay behind? Because I owned him. With the meth. We ended up finding him in a little apartment on the second floor in this little house, threw what little he had in there, and went about our business. So one day we were coming down off a 6-day and 6-night high, and dropped him off at his little apartment, went back home, went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning by a phone call from his mom. Hey, Eric is in the Minneapolis burn center, and he's not going to make it. We had put his mattress on the floor a little too close to the heat register. And when he went to bed that night and he fell asleep, because of the amount of time he was up and the intensity of what that drug does to your body when that mattress started on fire, he didn't wake up until he was already melted into it. I was just sitting here this morning reading the newspaper article about it. When we went into what happened was when we went into his house after we went and visited, they pulled the plug. 99% of his body was just melted. We went into his house, me and one of my other guys, to get the drugs and stuff out of there before they did anything with it. And where his bedroom was, it was back. There was a living room, then through a little kitchen, and then a little tiny hallway into where the door was to get out. And that mattress, he was melted into it, and he tried finding his way along the wall in the living room and the kitchen and into the hallway, and you could see body stuff on the walls. And he got stuck in the hallway, couldn't get out. The mattress was, when they found him, the mattress was jammed in the doorway to get out, and he must have finally melted out of it, and they found him in the bathtub. So after that happened, I became so depressed. Not that I cared. I mean, I did. I loved the guy, but it was my fault. And I just didn't feel like living anymore. And all these years, I was supposedly this big go-to guy. And I wanted to do this more than anything else, and I couldn't.
Why not?
Didn't have the gall. So I tried taking myself out by overdosing and just using so many drugs I would just go to sleep and die. And I almost succeeded on 3 occasions before my final arrest, including the night before my final arrest. This is how crazy it was. The day before my arrest, I had been going out stealing stuff too, on top of dealing drugs and doing all this other stuff, and including taking some stuff out of some garages of this place where I was living with my wife in this apartment complex. And one night it was because I was arrested January 6th, 2009. So January, if you look at the records in Chippewa Falls on January 5th, there was a horrendous blizzard. And I was out of money. And I went out dealing drugs in my car. I didn't even have my shoes tied, my boots tied. I had a backpack full, probably 3-4 pounds of marijuana in it. And I went out one night, and I was coming down off about a 6-day-and-night high. And I went out dealing. On my way back, I just lost all sense of where I was, who I was. And I ended up in a ditch. Lost control of the car a couple times, ended up in a ditch. Don't know where I was, couldn't see where I was. I got out of the car, started walking down the road, and I couldn't see anything. I called my brother. I'm like, hey, man, I don't know where I am, but I'm lost, and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, where are you? I don't know, but I do see one of these towers with the blinking light. Well, there's towers everywhere, Brian. And pretty soon I seen cherry lights come on down the road by my car. I wasn't too far away. Could just barely see it, but I saw cherry lights, and I'm like, oh man, it's the cops. And I remember diving. There wasn't nothing. I couldn't see nothing except the telephone pole, and I dove behind the telephone pole and covered myself, and I fell asleep. And this is how I know that the Lord pursues us, and the Lord keeps us safe when He knows that we are His. Because I should have been dead that night. There's no way my brother could have found out where I was, but he happened to be on that road where the cop was, and he saw my car, and he later told me that he got out, and cops are like, well, where's the guy that owns the car? And he goes, well, he's home now, and he's going to have it towed in the morning and stuff. And he goes, well, make sure that gets taken care of. And so yeah, they ended up getting the car towed that night. So anyway, I wake up the next morning, and I knew my car was in hock, and I couldn't pay to get it out. So my meth dealer came over, and we went out to sell a few bags of weed. So I get my car out, and when I got home, the house was just surrounded by cops and task force and POs, and that was January 6, 2009, and that was my final arrest.
I'm sorry. Why were they there?
Well, somebody had said that some of their stuff was missing in the garage. And because I was on probation, and I've had theft charges in the past, and I'm on probation, they didn't have to have a warrant or what do you call it, to come into your house. They can just come into your house anytime with their PO. So they did. And of course, tons of drugs. By the way, my wife had a son, a 6-year-old boy named Lance at the time, who's autistic, living in that house. And it was his backpack that I had full of dope on top of that. So yeah, when we pulled in, they got us out, arrested me, found all that dope, found the dope in the house, found the meth in the house, found the pipes in the house. And my wife got taken in. My brother was there at the time. He got taken in, and I got taken in. So that was, again, January 26, 2009, and that's where I'll stop today, because this is where all the good stuff finally starts happening.
I've seen you get a little emotional over some of these shows, and honestly, I've gotten a little choked up here and there just hearing some of these things, but this was certainly more than the other times when you were talking about Eric. obviously it was horrific situation. You went and you shot a dude, you didn't even care.
No.
A lot of things, didn't really care. Some things get you a little emotional. I've abused people, women, etc. This one impacts you to this day that much. Why?
Well, that was kind of going to be the takeaway from today about the mindset that you have as a drug addict. And, number one, just denying that any kind of drug is a gateway drug. But the main thing is that we don't think as drug addicts or alcoholics or gambling addicts or whatever that we're hurting anybody else, right? It's like, mind your own business. I ain't hurting nobody but myself. Leave me alone. Let me do my thing. And this is just one, because obviously, as any kind of addict, you are hurting everybody that loves you just by doing what you're doing, and them seeing that you're hurting yourself hurts them. But when it gets to a circumstance like this where an individual loses their life in a horrific way because of something that you did to turn them onto that drug, yeah, it was his free will to take that drug, and if it wasn't me, it could have been somebody else. But that's besides the point. I'm the one that turned him onto the drug. It happened to him. Even though I've been in the Lord for a long time, even up to that point, after that happened, after I came to the Lord, it took probably 4 or 5 years before I was able to allow the Lord to give me forgiveness for myself. For that, every December, it happened December 20th, 2017. Every December, when I roll that calendar over, it was the first thing that came to my mind, and that whole month was just depressing for me.
And this was after
Especially
you were
that
saved.
day. Yeah. And I'm good with it now. I know the Lord's forgiven me, but you just never forget.
You can't take that.
Like
I mean, that'll be with you forever.
Yeah, and it's the hardest out of everything I've done.
Yeah,
that's the hardest part of sharing my story out there, although it needs to be said. But at least I don't carry it with me anymore. And I put up a video shortly after that on my YouTube channel with a song that was one of Eric's favorite songs, and I just put what pictures I had of him up there and just said, you know what, Eric, I'm sorry, man. But drugs, you think that you're the only one being impacted by it, and that's a damn lie from the enemy. It affects everybody around you, especially your loved ones.
I'm looking at this, or I'm thinking of this, and we've kind of talked about this before. The only way that it seems like we can get through these things and talking about this and have the show is because we know where you end up.
Yeah.
We know how this story, I wouldn't say ends, but how you've got to where you are now. But that doesn't take away the stuff that happened over those years. I mean,
no.
I don't think that's really how it works. Oh, I believe in God now. I'm a Christian. Oh, okay. Well, then I don't even care about any of that stuff anymore. No, that's
Right.
that stuff will stay with you forever. And as you had mentioned, that God can take that from you and He can forgive you, but that never goes away, man.
It never goes away, but it gives you more of a passion to work with others who are addicts and get them out of the game before something like that happens to them. Because it can. I mean, I've been around the game long enough, been in prison long enough to see tons of people that were adversely affected by the drugs or alcohol that they were doing without them being proactively involved in something that caused it. I mean, one of my roommates, a great guy, I'm still in contact with him today, Andy Mack Hollaback, a white boy from Milwaukee that actually acts black. He's got the bag and pants and everything else going on. He's got the dialect, but he grew up in Milwaukee, and one day he was at a party. He didn't even drink. He was at a party and everybody's drunk and they're like, hey, go to the gas station, get us some more beer. And he went to the gas station, went in the cooler to get some 40 ounces out, and somebody come in the gas station, and because of the way he looks and everything, they started talking smack to him across. They were in the doorway of the gas station, and Andy told them to shut up a couple times. They didn't. He chucked a 40 ouncer across the gas station, cracked him in the head, and killed him. Ended up with 20 some years in prison. I mean, just being around that environment, you don't have to be actively involved. And that's why I'm so hard on kids when I go to the school about, man, you think that you can still go to a party or a bar or anything, even if you're not going to drink. You just want to hang with your bros. But, man, do you understand all the things, all the drama, all the shootings, all the stabbings, all the people getting run over and everything else at these places? You don't have to drink nothing, and something can happen to your life like it did with Andy, man. Just putting yourself in that position puts you in great jeopardy. And, man, you try to just grab hold of it. I mean, I'd like to just take a 2x4 up the side of the kids' heads and say, hey, you see this, man?
Yeah.
You not see this?
Yeah, if somebody did that to you.
It's against the law. Yeah.
Well, right. But if somebody said that stuff to you when you were that age.
And I didn't listen, right?
That's just it. For some, there's just.
In their face.
Right. Because we're indestructible, right? We're 15, we're 16.
You don't know what you're talking about.
No.
Obviously, I do.
That's why isn't that the saying that the youth is wasted on the young? Right? Because, boy, if you're actually.
Parents either, because we don't know nothing, right? I mean, I've got 57 years of experience right now, dude.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that was a tough one for you, for me, for I think anyone that's watching, but I think it's needed. So thank you for, once again, being vulnerable and to talk about these things that are very difficult to talk about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll leave it there. We'll pick it up next week.
Sounds good.
All right. I love you, man.
Love you, bro.